All right, welcome to your next module. So what we're going to do for this module is look at something called mass wasting. So yes, that is a kind of geologic term. The term we would probably use just in general would be landslides. And so we want to look at how material is moved. So we're going to separate this from this idea of erosion, although it is surely related. So what we want to be able to do is identify these events. And so we're going to do that kind of by what material is moving and how it's moving. And so like everything else that we like to do in geology, of course, we want to categorize things, right? We put volcanoes in groups, we put earthquakes in groups, we put rocks and minerals in groups. We want to put these mass wasting events into groups. And so I'm sure you've seen, and it's all over YouTube, these are kind of very dramatic videos of material moving down slope, these big landslides, boulders falling, or, hillsides falling down on these steep slopes. That's what we're talking about. And so we want to look at a little bit about what causes them. So we want to look at some factors that influence whether a slope is stable or not. And some are pretty obvious, like obviously a super steep slope would be a little more unsafe than, let's say, some flat ground. So, if you're living in the Midwest and it's flatter than flat, I'm pretty sure that mass wasting or landslides is not the top of your list of things you have to worry about. But if you're in a mountainous area, here in Arizona even, if you're up in the northern part or even hiking around the valley, we know that there's steep slopes around, and those are more prone to mass wasting events. So as usual, there is a PowerPoint and a video that will discuss, of course, all these things. And in addition, some ways that we can stabilize slopes, like how can we prevent things from happening, or at least slow down the process. So when we look at all these kind of things, a little component of it is, of course, how can we help protect people, right? And of course, because there's a bunch of videos on YouTube, I just threw a couple in here that you could take a look at if you're, really jonesing for some from landslide events. Here are a few, but like I said, they're all over the place and I'm sure you've seen them. So that's what you're going to do for the main lecture. For the article, there is something from the USGS, which is the United States Geological Survey, and they have a little fact sheet that describes one of these groups of landslide events called a debris flow. And so, of course, debris is a very generic name, but it is telling you what's moving. It's basically a collection of everything, as opposed to, let's say, a mud flow. And that we're indicating mud as we have some fluid, but also that it's small pieces in general. It's very fluid. And the flow part means that it is fluid. Usually that indicates there's some water involved, because we could have a rock fall, which would indicate that rock is the material that's moving, and how it's moving is it's falling. It's a pretty steep cliff and it's moving down slope, probably without fluids involved. So anyway, the debris flow hazards fact sheet is what I want you to take a look at before you go ahead and do the article quiz. And then finally, I'm going to have you do a homework assignment where you're going to use Google Earth. So I'm sure you've used a version of this. Google Maps is similar. Google Earth, of course, allows you to easily move around the world and look at different things. What I'm going to have you do is, if you click this link, it'll take you to the Google Earth web version page. And then I also need you to download this KML file and put it somewhere where you remember it. And when you open this, you'll have the ability to start what they call a new project or import a project. And when you do that in Google Earth, it'll basically give you these little location stops. And by double clicking them, you can go there and you can then view them. And I'm going to ask you some questions about those locations and what you see. And so there is this little tutorial, it's short, couple minutes, that just basically shows you how to load that into the Google Earth web version. And then you can kind of cruise around. The one caveat is, if you have some trouble, sometimes Macs seem to have some issues with this. If that's true, There is this PDF here that you can download and open, and it is the longitude and latitudes of each of the stop locations. You can just highlight those, and there's a search bar in the web version where you could just plug that in and it'll take you to that location. And then you can answer the questions. So that's what we're going to do for our mass wasting module. For the lab this week, we're going to look at something a little different. We're going to look at copper mining. So Arizona is a big copper state. There's a bunch of copper mines here in Arizona. And so we're just going to have you look at the process of mining copper and the minerals that are involved in that. So some mineral identification and then some information about how we mine copper here in Arizona. Alrighty, so that's what you're going to do for this mass wasting module. A little mass wasting, a little copper mining. And as always, if you have any problems, questions, comments, need some help, please don't hesitate to contact me.